let's just get into some of the details. What are the Padres, first of all, getting in Nick Pivetta, and what are they paying, really, to acquire him? Nick Pivetta, do some research last night. Big guy, about 6'5", right-hander, throws hard, going to hit upper 90s, 96, 97 on the fastball. Really good. I mean, if you just look at record and ERA, it's going to be underwhelming. Yeah. You're going to say 6-12, ERA in the 4s. Why did the Padres just spend $55 million on a mediocre pitcher? And if that's your take, that's your take. But
bit ill-informed.
There are definitely some signs that Nick Pivetta is someone you want to have in your starting rotation. He's got a really good strikeout to walk ratio. So, throws strikes, throws hard, strikes batters out more than one per inning, generally over the course of his career. So he can get swing and miss. As you said, Woods, he's got a real reputation as a solid competitor. And some of the numbers behind the numbers actually indicate he could be even better than they saw with the Red Sox. He was a mainstay in the rotation the last 4 years. Pretty much 2 WAR a season, right around 2 every single year, which value-wise nowadays, 1 WAR is worth about $9 million on the open market.
Between 8 and 9, yeah.
So you're essentially getting an $18 million pitcher for $4 million this year.
Yeah.
Now you're going to pay $19 million next year, but that's not a huge overpay either next year for Nick Pivetta. So ultimately, this deal of 4 years and $55 million is being viewed around baseball as a real nice bargain for the San Diego Padres. That's the takeaway right now. Now we'll see if it truly plays out that way. If he makes
AAV under $14 million, if you break it all down that way,
it's going to cost the Padres, if they don't make any other moves, it'll cost them a little bit in luxury tax, because they're now about $17 to $18 million over the luxury tax level. But you're only taxed on the amount that you're over, and you're only taxed 20% on that amount. So 20% on $18 million is about $3.6 million. So they're paying essentially an extra $3.6 million in luxury tax for one season. And they're not calculating it now either. That could change by the end of the year. But at the moment, they're over the luxury tax. It's interesting that all the discussion this offseason about staying under the luxury tax does not seem to have been relevant, because it doesn't look like the Padres, unless things go really bad and they trade off Dylan Cease and Robert Suarez and maybe someone else, doesn't look like they'll get under the luxury tax this year. So it seems like they're okay going over it.
Good.
Which, that was kind of my point at the beginning of the offseason. It's okay to go over it, by at least a marginal amount here, because you got under it last year.
Correct.
So your penalties
don't miss it by an inch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, your penalties aren't going to be overly, it's not like you're a repeat offender over and over again. It's okay if you have to go over it to put a competitive pitching staff on the mound for your team this year.
I like it, man. I really do. Looking at some of his rankings, and you got to remember too where he pitched. He pitched at Fenway Park, and I think him and Petco, he was on a bad team. He's a bad team last year.
Mediocre team.
Mediocre. They weren't great.
81 and 81.
Yeah.
Mediocre.
The definition of mediocre. I like this move. I like the competitive fire that he has. He is one of those guys. And so, yeah, man, again, that contract that you just laid out, that's more than adequate. It's just fine. It's absolutely fine by me. And it addresses such a need in the rotation. That's the main thing. It addresses such a need. And it's not, look, man, at the end of the day, you could have gotten Martin Perez back, and he was fine when he was here. Really nice dude, but, a little bit long in the tooth. This one actually feels like, okay, like this guy can actually do something. He can do something. You're not kind of crossing your fingers every time he takes the bump. And, slots right in, absolutely fills a need, and not a ton of money, especially this year and next.
Now, given the fact that we've seen this multiple times with Nick Pivetta, with Michael King and his oddly structured contract, Padres clearly are trying to keep their real cash outlays this season from climbing too high. And whether that's a directive from the new ownership and, John Seidler, or whether that's from Major League Baseball saying, hey, you have to remain in compliance with your debt service rules. And that's based on what you're actually spending this year. You can't really go above $200 million. We won't let you. I don't know where that's coming from, but there seems to be a very obvious need for the Padres to not spend actual cash this year beyond what they've pretty much already committed to. So they're at their upper peak, right around $200 million with what they can spend in actual money. But, the luxury tax, that's more of a flexible thing that, you can work with and massage a little bit to try to get the best roster you can on the field.
Oh, I like that.
Massage?
Yeah.
A little massage?
Yeah. Like
so,
that a lot.
Next year, $19 million, they're probably going to have to find money to offset that. But you've got, Eric Hosmer's money coming off the books. Dylan Cease's money is coming off the books, whether you trade him or he just leaves in free agency. Robert Suarez probably going to opt out. There's money to pay for this deal in upcoming years. Now, is there an element of you just keep pushing back the pain, just like on credit cards, and you keep buying on credit cards? Eventually,
it's going to catch up.
The bill collector is coming, and there's going to be a reckoning at some point. But I don't get the sense that you worry too much about that.
Yeah, I'm looking. I can think my theory's out the window, but home games, he was 3-6 with a 3.86, 72 innings, whip of 116, struck out 92, walked 23. On the road, he was 3-6. 4.42 ERA, so he's higher on the road. Started 14 games, gave up a lot more homers, which is weird. A lot more homers on the road. 20 bombs in comparison to 8. Walked fewer guys.
As a right-handed pitcher, though, at Fenway, you're not necessarily dealing with the monster. You're dealing, you got that big gap in right center for the lefties that are the power hitters.
Yeah,
so.
I'm looking to his splits against right and left actually pitches a little bit better against lefties. Throws a little bit better against lefties than he does against righties. His whip is lower, strikes out more guys. And so, it's got kind of the reverse split for Nick Pivetta. But again, I'm excited to talk to Eno because when you get into underlying stats and things like that, look, a little bit hard for some people to understand, but you looked at his expected ERA last year. I think it finished at 4.14, but his expected was right around 350, something like that. So very, very good.
Now, what is we teased it earlier a little bit. What does your gut tell you? Does this mean more moves to come in the sense of like Dylan Cease is now definitely gone, or we're all in, we're keeping Cease, and now we have a solid at least a 1 through 4 in the rotation, and
I think it's a fair question.
Last year's business.
I think it's a fair question
because if you trade Cease next week, I think this was a 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards.
Right. And we talked about it this morning. I pitched it to Ben. I said, all right, man, we got Nick Pivetta, and in all of our minds, we've now got the whiteboard, and we've got, Cease, King, you, Pivetta, TBD. And we're all okay with that right now. Yeah. A lot of teams in that same position. Yes, a lot of teams. Looking for our 5th starter. Who's it going to be? Matty Walden. Who's it going to be? Man, if you go out now and you trade Dylan Cease for a absolute haul, and let's say Robert Suarez too, and just hypothetical, Baltimore Orioles, who've done less than nothing. They put together a nasty package. They're desperate, and they want to win. And they saw what the Red Sox just did, signing Alex Bregman. They saw what the Yankees did this offseason. They want to compete. They have a good young team, and their fans demand it. So they put together a nasty-ass haul for Dylan Cease and Robert Suarez. And it's big. It's a big haul. What do you do as a Padre fan? How's your reaction going to be? I'm going to be pretty mad if you trade Dylan Cease. I really am. I'm like, okay, now you had me kind of sold with these guys at 1 through 4.
Big haul means guys 2 or 3 years away.
Potentially,
big haul of major league ready guys.
And I think it would take some wind out of the clubhouse sales. I think this puts a little wind in. If you trade Cease, I think it sucks it right back out. I do. That's just my gut feeling. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't think it should. It might.
I think you're still listening.
Anything's possible,
I think you're always still listening, but my sense is that the Padres wanted to put together a good starting rotation, and now they feel like they have one. They have a rotation that can match up with everyone but the Dodgers probably in baseball now.
Absolutely.
At least 1 to 4, and we'll see if one of those guys comes through as a number 5. That being said, we don't know anything about the San Diego Padres.
We don't.
The insiders
Obviously.
don't know anything. The reporting, Kevin Acee and Dennis Lin are writing, doesn't look like they're looking to trade King and Cease anymore.
That's what they're saying.
That's what they're saying. But they've also been saying probably weren't going to sign anyone like Nick Pivetta, and they just did. So I don't know what any of us knows about the San Diego Padres. We're all just kind of guessing at this point.